Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Dominick from the Comic Book Report YouTube channel over here doing another guest review for organicpricedbooks.com. And today I've got a really exciting one for all of you. I will be doing an overview for the Batman One Bad Day box set from DC Comics. This is a 9-volume set that includes all 8 of the Batman One Bad Day one-shots, along with a copy of Alan Moore's Batman the Killing Joke. This really is a unique box set, and it boasts some of the industry's top creators. There are so many artists and pencilers attached to this set, but some of the most notable for me are Alan Moore, Tom King, Tom Taylor, Joshua Williamson, Mitch Gerads, Giuseppe Camuncoli, Ivan Rice, and many more. The comics in this box set were initially published by DC Comics, in the case of The Killing Joke in 1988, and for the rest of the One Bad Day set beginning in 2022. The volume itself collects Batman One Bad Day, the Riddler, Two-Face, Penguin, Mr. Freeze, Catwoman, Bane, Clayface, and Rael Ghoul, along with that copy of Batman the Killing Joke. All of these in the box are a standard size hardcover format and comes in at around 800 pages total. With a box set like this, I kind of went back and forth on how to present this overview. I thought I'd start with some sweeping shots of all the covers of the different volumes included in the box, and then I'll go ahead and flip them all over so you can get a picture of the back covers as well before we kind of take a look at some of the individual volumes. I'll try to go really light to no spoilers in this review as much as possible, but I definitely want you to feel like you get a sampling of what you can expect in this box set from DC. I know that these volumes are also available individually. You can pick them up. I do believe that The Killing Joke only comes with the box set. I could be wrong about that. It might also come in the box that just has the Riddler volume. I'm not sure on that. But I know the rest of these can be purchased individually as hardcover, or you can go seek out the one-shot collections. Something notable on the back of these hardcovers, we have the Brian Boland images of all of the different heroes, so they kind of match up with the art you'd find in that original Alan Moore Killing Joke narrative, and I really liked that. I like seeing Boland's approach to all of these other villains. It lent a kind of uniformity to this collection, at least with these back covers. Really a stylish thing here that I didn't know before picking up this collection. These are all standard size hardcovers, as I mentioned earlier, and as far as the paper stock you can expect in this book, well, it's a little bit hard to describe. I think if I had to put a dart at it, I would say that this is a very light gloss collection. I've had some people say it's a matte. I think it's more than a matte. I think it does have a light gloss to it. To me, none of these books are printed with that kind of newspaper quality. It's definitely more gloss than what we see with like the modern Batman collections, in my opinion. So that was really a welcome surprise. I don't think that they're a really thick archival glossy print by any means, but they do feel a bit glossier than a matte paper. So again, it's right on the borderline for me, but it's still a really fun set. Taking a look at the first volume in this collection, the Batman One Bad Day, The Riddler by Tom King, illustrated by Mitch Gerads. This is a really fascinating book. This was actually one of my top 3 in this collection, in my opinion. I didn't know what to expect with this one. I had heard pretty good things, and I am admittedly a Tom King fan. Before we dive into the Riddler specifically, just one more note about this collection. All of this is kind of based around the idea presented in Batman the Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Boland all those years ago. This idea of, it's not quite an origin story for the villain, although some of these books kind of do a retelling. It's more of one bad day can really twist someone forever, can turn them villainous. All that's needed is just one spectacularly bad day. And what these collections really try to do is to give us the one bad day in the lives of these villains, or certainly a bad day. I think that there are volumes that really stick to that more closely than others. There's some that definitely try to pay homage more to The Killing Joke, I think more overtly, while others I think really play fast and loose with this concept of one bad day. But they are really fun kind of one-off anthology stories for some of these key villains in the Bat universe over at DC Comics. For the Riddler here specifically, I think that this is one that does try to be its own spin on Killing Joke, but of course for the Riddler. We have a lot of really good flashbacks, again similar to The Killing Joke, showing the Riddler at different stages in his life. Predominantly when he was kind of school age, he had sort of an abusive father. He had kind of this perfectionist bend, and he couldn't figure out riddles. I thought that was a really unique touch, but overall, with the Riddler we're presented here is absolutely sinister. He is so creepy and murderous and really unhinged. This is a Riddler like I've never seen him before, possibly one of the most effective incarnations of Riddler I've ever seen. I think I do prefer him a little more boisterous and fun. This is a grim, dark Riddler, and I think that it really still functions quite well. The interactions between him and Batman and kind of the implications of their relationship are really, really groundbreaking for me, and this is one that will definitely stick with me long after that initial read has passed. Next up in this box set, we have the Batman One Bad Day Two-Face collection, written by Mariko Tamaki and penciled by Javi Fernandez. And this was definitely a good part of the collection as well. It wasn't one of my top tier, but probably right in the middle as far as the quality goes for me. I thought the art from Fernandez was absolutely exceptional. It's some of my favorite art in this collection, and I think Two-Face is definitely a great mainstay staple for a Batman villain. I was really intrigued to see what we would get here, but overall, I think I was left wanting a little bit. A couple aspects about this collection that I did enjoy is that this definitely had more cameo appearances from some of the broader Bat family, which I liked. We had appearances from Spoiler, as well as the Cassandra Cain kind of Batgirl, and I thought that was really neat. I like how they rolled them into this book. There were a couple other appearances as well, but those two were pretty notable for me. This has to do with Two-Face sort of asking Batman to kind of run security for an event he's throwing because there's been kind of a murder threat or something like that. I think this central setup was definitely pretty unique, and it definitely left me intrigued for this one-shot. Overall, we get to know a little bit more about Two-Face and where he comes from, especially his father-son dynamic with his own father. That was a wrinkle I had not expected picking up this book. And I should say at this point as well, I'm not sure about what the canon status is for these stories. I highly suspect these are not canonical books, but, I don't know. I could be wrong on that. But I think if you read them just as standalone kind of vignettes in the Bat universe, you won't be disappointed. I think if you're a fan like me of a lot of the notable Batman villains, a collection like this is relatively invaluable. Frankly, I'm surprised we don't get more of collections like these. This kind of reminds me of a more expanded, more, I want to say taking itself more seriously version of the Joker's Asylum miniseries. I know I reviewed a trade paperback collection of the Batman Joker's Asylum. This is kind of like an expanded version of that again is a little more grown up or serious in some ways, I would say. I like this whole concept though. I am familiar with something like this. I do think that there are a couple notable glaring exceptions to this collection while we're talking about this. I'm surprised not to see a Scarecrow in here, a Poison Ivy, a Harley Quinn, Hugo Strange. There's so many Man-Bat. There's so many great Batman villains that could have been added to this collection. It does make me eager and hopeful that we might see a One Bad Day Part 2 down the road, because again, Batman has such a great rogues gallery. Next up for our overview, Batman One Bad Day Penguin, written by John Ridley and art by Giuseppe Camuncoli. Right from the jump, I am always interested in a good Penguin story, and I put this one right about middle of the road. I would say, in fact, that Penguin is rarely even depicted as a straight-up villain in this. He's more of an anti-hero or someone you're kind of rooting for. It's a really bizarre setup. It basically has the Penguin kind of out and down on his luck. He no longer has his criminal empire, but this one shot is him basically trying to take back the throne in Gotham as kind of a crime kingpin. We have him kind of trying to assemble a team and basically topple the guy that betrayed him initially. This book has Batman kind of in the periphery, showing up. Whether or not he stops Penguin is maybe up to the narrative to unfold for all of you, but that's basically the bones and setup for this Penguin one-shot. I've heard some pretty negative reviews about this collection specifically, but I think it was fine. This was definitely a middle-of-the-road collection, maybe in the lower tier, but still great fun. I really enjoy the art from Camuncoli. That's an artist I've definitely respected from other works as well. This was my first foray into the works of John Ridley, I will say, though I am looking for recommendations. If you have any good ones, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, that's really it for this Penguin book. I loved the art. I think it just felt really crisp. There is kind of a polished roundedness to this whole book. It looks a bit animated in some ways. But yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I think if you like the Penguin, this definitely paints him in a more Again, I hesitate to say heroic light, but not a straight up villain. There's almost like degrees of villainy, and he's maybe at the upper crust of that. But it's a fun book. I think that this is one that some people will enjoy if you are a fan of the Penguin. I think if you don't really like this character, this will not really be an essential pickup for you. But if you get this box set, it's still worth the time, at least in my opinion. Next, we have Batman One Bad Day, Mr. Freeze, written by Gary Duggan and penciled by Matteo Scalera. Right from the jump, the art is absolutely outstanding. It's very, very stylized, different than what you see in a lot of the other comics, and in some ways reminiscent, and I don't know even how exactly, but reminiscent to me of the Batman animated series. It's even more stylized than that, but it has that kind of deco feel, the art deco look to it in many ways. There's a kind of hardness to a lot of the shapes in this, offset, of course, by the circular red eyes of Mr. Freeze. This is a Mr. Freeze story, so of course we're talking about Freeze, we're talking about his frozen wife Nora, and it is kind of a Christmas story. I really enjoyed that. I like seeing snow in Gotham. I like kind of having something that's set in a time and place, Batman around the winter time, of course, and this is really trying to redeem Mr. Freeze by trying to give him access to his wife. There are a lot of grim flashbacks, and we see kind of the villainous nature of Freeze emerge throughout this book. I do wish they leaned a little bit more into the tragic nature of Mr. Freeze. We get a little bit of it, but he feels relatively irredeemable in a collection like this, and what I mean is that we don't really get some of his better virtues. We just have a guy that's completely obsessed and kind of twisted in his way. I like the appearance of Robin in this book. It's definitely true to form for the character of Robin, and it feels, again, kind of like a fun one-off Christmas adventure. I think with Mr. Freeze, I've always really enjoyed this character. I love the Batman animated series episode about him, and I think that I was hoping for a little bit more in this collection, but I think it's still easily one of the better half in this box set. The art throughout it, like I said, is really stunning. It's some of my favorite art in this book. I think the writing was all dialed in and there. But again, I think how they handled Mr. Freeze, I had hoped for a bit more. I mean, they gave so much virtue to Penguin in this box that I think I would have liked a little bit more of that with Freeze, but instead we get some of the more negative aspects of his nature on display. But still a worthwhile read in my opinion. Next up in the box, we have Batman One Bad Day, Catwoman, written by G. Willow Wilson and penciled by Jamie McKelvey, and right from the jump, the art feels so modern. Oh my gosh, it's so like computer-assisted, polished, and pretty. I don't know how else to say it. I'm not really familiar with this artist, but it definitely jumps out and pops right from the page. I think I really enjoy kind of the heavy outlines, and again, the kind of polished look to it. It just really works, and I think it feels very natural for a Catwoman story, I would say overall. This book is basically about Catwoman trying to do a small heist, trying to pick up basically a family heirloom. And I think that that was a really fun wrinkle that really fits into that One Bad Day storyline. There is a degree of history here and or flashback we have for Catwoman, and in that way it does mirror some of the flashbacks we get from Killing Joke, but in nowhere near the intensity or kind of overtness we have for the Riddler. But we can see how it tries to stick to the theme. I will say that Catwoman is also depicted very, again, not heroically, but you're kind of rooting for her. She doesn't feel super villainous or evil in this collection. This isn't super evil Catwoman. This is our kind of lovable Catwoman, our lovable Selina Kyle in many ways. We have some flirtation between her and Batman, which is something I didn't really expect in this volume, but it was a welcome surprise for me. I do think overall this story works, but it felt a little bit lackluster. I think I was hoping for more from a Catwoman story. This is such a great character, and the story, while it's not bad, I think we could have brought in more intensity to its part in the One Bad Day box set. But I think if you're looking for something that doesn't go super dark, like maybe the Riddler or the Mr. Freeze story goes, this is a really fun aspect in this collection, and this might be still worth a pickup in like kind of a single hardcover edition for you, especially if you're a fan of the character of Catwoman. This is a fun Catwoman story, and frankly, I walked away feeling like I knew a bit more about this character, which I definitely appreciated. Okay, moving right along, we have Batman One Bad Day, Bane, written by Joshua Williamson with art from Howard Porter. Okay, from the jump of this one, I had heard really good reviews about this, and I'm recently really becoming a Joshua Williamson fan. I will admit, Bane is never really my favorite Batman character. Yes, I've seen him written extraordinarily well, but for whatever reason, this character I just have a hard time engaging with. That being said, I tried to keep an open mind going into this collection. And while it wasn't my favorite in the box, it was definitely one of the most unique as far as what they decided to do with this character. They try to make Bane a full-on kind of redemptive hero in this. We have him more than kind of trying to make up for his past sins, so to speak. We basically have him on a quest to destroy the last of the venom chemicals in the world as far as he knows. We have a lot of really interesting flashbacks of what happened with him and Batman. This whole book is set in kind of a near future, and I really enjoyed the idea. It's kind of a road trip epic story for Bane done in kind of a little one-shot here, and I think overall it was really effective. I think that the Bane we get here is a little bit different than I've ever seen him. The art throughout it was very stylized again, but I think it just really worked for this character. The kind of musculature and weird proportions of a lot of the character models really fit for Bane. I think that the art just jumped from the page. I do think that this is going to polarize a lot of people as far as the art goes because it is so unique and stylized. I, for one, love the art. I think the story was pretty well grounded for a Bane story like this, and I really enjoyed its inclusion in the box. This is definitely in about the middle for me as well. Definitely enjoyed it more than things like Catwoman and Two-Face, that's for sure. But I hoped for maybe something a little different, but honestly, this one very much surprised me, and for that, I give it full marks. Definitely worth a read in my book. Next, and possibly my favorite in this entire box, we have Batman One Bad Day Clayface, written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, and penciled by Hermanico. So right from the jump, these two authors are people that I'm really following their careers, especially in DC Comics. They not too long ago wrote Batman Neo Year, which was a personal favorite of mine this last year or so. I had an opportunity to actually meet them at a local comic shop this year. Really cool guys. At any rate, I was really excited right from the jump to read this one, and to find out that they wrote it, it was even more spectacular for me. Clayface was a character I was initially ambivalent about, but in recent years I've grown to really like this character. I enjoyed what James Tynion did for him over in his Detective Comics run, and since then especially, I'm just paying more attention to Clayface. I really couldn't wait to see what kind of story we got here, and we basically have Basil Karlo, Clayface, in Hollywood, trying to make it as an actor once again, and it's not quite going his way. And I think that this is another story that goes pretty dark. The art is absolutely stunning throughout, all the different kind of Clayface aspects when he goes full clay on people. It just really works for me. It's really effective. I think setting it in Hollywood was also a really fun change of pace to a lot of the Gotham-based narratives, and you can tell that you're in a different place. Overall, this is one that really stays with me. This is one that if I didn't get the box set and I knew the quality of it, I would absolutely at least buy it in the hardcover because I just enjoyed it that much. It made me want to read more Clayface-based stories, and this is easily one of my favorite stories I've ever read of this character. I'll leave some of the spoilers to you because I want you to enjoy it for yourselves. But yeah, even down to the narrative framing of this story, everything just works for me. It feels very well done, and it definitely deserves a place in this collection. I think it fits the theme really well of One Bad Day. Definitely, if not the best, it's probably my pick for the favorite in this box. Okay, and last of the One Bad Day series so far, we have Batman One Bad Day Rael Ghoul, written by Tom Taylor and penciled by Ivan Rice. Right from the jump, this is a creative powerhouse duo for me. I love Tom Taylor from what he's done with All New Wolverine, Nightwing, Injustice, and so many more. And Ivan Rice, I've enjoyed his work at DC as well immensely. This is a villain I always enjoy as well. I think he's a really good adversary for Batman as far as his kind of mindset. He's just a genius. He's kind of a global innovator / terrorist. He's a really fascinating character that has deep ties into Batman and his family and world, obviously. And this story really just works for me. Having a character that's kind of near immortal, I wasn't really sure what we were going to get for a bad day for Rael Ghoul, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think his overall plot in this really works effectively. The appearance we get of Batman and Damian Wayne Robin in this is just really, really going great. It goes hard, and I loved it. I think the payoff was absolutely there for this narrative, and I won't spoil it for you, but this is also easily one of the best in the collection for me. I think for me, this and Clayface were easily the top two. They really set themselves apart in this collection for me. Oh, you know what? Maybe Riddler. Those are probably my top three, actually. So we have Clayface, Rael Ghoul, and Riddler. Of these new One Bad Day sets, those three are easily my top three, and with good reason. I do think Tom Taylor has written stronger narratives, but I did like seeing him handle the Batman. I really enjoyed seeing him handle Ra's al Ghul. I think this also really, really works for the One Bad Day kind of aspects. It doesn't really try to pay homage too much to Killing Joke, but we definitely get to see Ra's kind of not in his best days. I do really like the plot. Like I said, we have kind of a genius level plot that goes on, and having him go off against the Batman, it just really is a lot of fun, and I hope you all enjoy it if you pick this up. This is another one I'd highly recommend to buy individually, even if you don't plan to get the box set. Okay, and I'm not really going to go into a review of this one too intensely either. This is not part of Batman One Bad Day, but it's kind of the thing that started it all. Of course, I'm talking about Batman The Killing Joke from Alan Moore and Brian Boland. I am really happy they included this in the box, as we can see what kind of set the tone and what inspired this collection. We even have a quote from this Killing Joke that talks about One Bad Day, which is where, of course, this whole miniseries kind of gets its name. Most notably, this is included in the box set, and the best feature of it, of course, is that it has the restored coloring from John Higgins. I had never seen this coloring before. I had certainly not read the Killing Joke like this. The other Killing Joke I had read didn't have Higgins on coloring, and it looks a lot more, I'm going to go with realistic, versus the Higgins coloring is a lot more kind of like a kaleidoscopic, psychedelic trip, I will say. There's a lot of just really high contrast, high saturated colors, primary colors, and you feel like you're going through a weird circus or a weird bad dream, or like I said, trip of some kind. And I think it really works. And I read a blurb about it that the coloring we've seen in like the deluxe edition for Killing Joke, the more realistic, straight-laced kind of coloring, is sort of the story presented as it should be, or from the viewpoint of Batman, versus what we have with this Higgins one is almost presented through maybe how the Jokers would see this whole event, or through that lens. And I think that certainly lent a lot to this rereading for me. I think to read The Killing Joke with this coloring is a completely different experience. I'm so happy it was restored for this set. I know a lot of collectors, that was really the selling point for this box set, was to have just a standalone Killing Joke volume with that Higgins kind of coloring. Really, really, just it feels like you're reading a completely different book. You can see the coloring as I flip through this book. If you're used to the other Killing Joke like I was, this is just a completely new experience, and I think it's definitely worth a cost of admission, at least in my mind. As far as the story goes, for any that don't know, this is an origin story for the Joker, and it also has a present-day Joker versus Batman story that really has some serious implications on the DC Universe as a whole. This was written again in the late 80s, so this has been around for a while, but again, very cool to see it in the box. And as you've seen for the past few seconds, I went ahead and dug out my Killing Joke Deluxe Edition so you can compare the coloring job between the one included in this box set and the more updated coloring, present in the Deluxe Edition, for example. A very different experience, and again, I just wanted to give you a quick side-by-side so you could see what I was talking about. And that's going to about wrap us up for this Batman One Bad Day box set overview here for Organic Price Books. There's so much more I can say about these books, and I will try to do a more extensive review of this box set over on my channel in the coming weeks. So please feel free to go look me up, The Comic Book Report. Don't forget to subscribe, maybe hit that bell icon, and you can see my coverage of this box set, and who knows, I might even review each of them individually down the road. At any rate, thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you're interested in picking up this box set or any other comic book collected editions, please always check out organicpricedbooks.com. Thanks again, and have a good one.